Hey guys, welcome to today's podcast. This is Tills4Thrills podcast, where we go over current events. We go over military life, veteran life, and we talk about just various topics, hobbies, stuff like that, family. Today is actually a very special episode for us. We're going to be doing a deep dive into PTSD to include a few statistics, and we're also going to be including a lot of personal experiences with our guest. So with that said, I'll introduce my co-host, Nick Straub, everyone.
Hey, how's it going, guys? Love to have you back for another episode of the podcast. Like Julian had said, we're going to be going over PTSD and going over some of the statistics behind those things. If you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, you guys can go on ahead and shoot us an email at the Tills4Thrills podcast at gmail.com. We'd love to be able to hear what you guys have to say. Any different topics that you guys want to go over, that's the spot where you can go on ahead and do that. Without further ado, I think that we're going to go right on ahead and get into some of the statistics around PTSD, and then we'll go on ahead and introduce our guests, and we'll go back to Julian with those statistics.
So, when you're dealing with PTSD, it's kind of a blanket term. You got to really kind of figure out what it is, what are the degrees of it, what are the statistics behind it. So I went ahead and I asked ChatGPT some of this stuff. It pulled various sources, and I'm looking at them right now. I see them on the screen. So let's just say, what are the statistics for veterans with PTSD? General prevalence. Approximately 7% of veterans will experience PTSD at some point in their lives, compared to the 6% of civilians. So, I mean, it doesn't really seem like there's too much of a difference, but you got to look into, the Army is the 1% of the 1%, the people who go in, what are the statistics like that for Air Force, Marines, Navy, stuff like that. And, as far as like how many people of the population go into that profession, in a national representative sample, the lifetime prevalence of PTSD among veterans was 8%, with a current prevalence of 4.8%. Some of these statistics go into service eras like Vietnam War, Gulf War, or Enduring Freedom, Operation Iraqi Freedom, stuff like that. You have let's see here. So then, how does PTSD affect you? A lot of veterans go through suicidal ideology or ideations, stuff like that. So you have to ask, what's the suicide rate for veterans with undiagnosed PT? Unfortunately, a lot of those are not recorded. But generally speaking, in 2021, there were 6,392 veteran suicides, averaging approximately 17.5 per day. Veterans are at a 50% higher risk of suicide compared to non-veterans. And that number's a little too high, bud. What do you think, Nick?
No, I absolutely agree, man. It's crazy. You hear the 22 a day, and it's when you really sit down and think about it. I mean, that's a crazy large amount of people. I mean, you take that in a month. What does that add up to in a month? I'm bad at math. That's why I joined the Army. But listen, that's at the end of the day, that's a lot of people. Then you boil it up into 6 months, into a year. I mean, that's a shitload of people. That's men, women from all walks of life, from all different branches of the military. And it's sad. It sucks. We're losing people every day, and these are people that you might not know, but these might be some people that you can relate to a little bit. So we're super excited to introduce our guests a little bit, and we'll get into that here in a second and see what they have to say about it and what their experiences. But at the end of the day, man, it's just it's too high of a number.
Right. A lot of the question is, how do you mitigate that number? And the fact is, it's really difficult to, like, even given some of the treatment plans that we have, some of the alternative medicines that we use, and alternative therapy sessions that we do. But when you're in it, it's kind of hard not to have it, because you get deployed, you go to a combat zone, or even if you have shitty leadership, or you see, you're losing friends left and right to suicide and stuff like that. And it really just is a traumatic experience in general. So there are varying degrees of PTSD. You have, like moderate PTSD, severe PTSD, stuff like that. And so just because you didn't deploy doesn't mean that you haven't seen some shit or done some shit that like might mess you up in the head a little bit. So we have two guests today. Our first guest is going to be my good friend Jacob Jackson. Our second guest is going to be our friend Nick's friend Joe. And so I'm going to start introductions with Jacob Jackson. Everybody, you want to go ahead and introduce yourself? Start with your name, where what your relation to the military was, and where you're at now.
Hey, what's up, guys? This is Jacob, as Taylor said. I did about 3 years stationed at Fort Hood from Indiana. Did my 3 years, got out, medically retired, actually. Decided to stay down in Texas. Didn't really feel like going back up to Indiana. Too cold in the winters for me. And now I'm a technician, and going day by day. So.
Right. And we're also gonna introduce Joe, man. How you doing over there? As I understand it, you're overseas.
I'm sorry, say it again.
I said, as I understand it, you're overseas. You want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
I am. Doing the thing over here. My name's Joe. I did a little bit under 10 years in the Army Infantry. Deployed twice. Started at Riley, then Campbell and Hood. Not really too much more until I hopped back into this line of work.
All right. So I do want to get into this. You guys heard some of the statistics behind it. I had a couple of more that I won't go into now because a lot of it is just, how the system fails us. And it's really disappointing. It's kind of saddening because what medical professionals seem to do is misdiagnose it as just like a basic mental health disorder. And instead of maybe catering to the individual and learning how the individual can be treated, they blanket statement it all. And they're just like, hey, here's some pills. Take these pills. So Joe, I know you did some alternative stuff. So before you get into your journeys, what was it like for you going through the VA and getting diagnosed with PTSD?
For me, it was kind of a nightmare. I started my process about 2 to 3 months before getting out. I had a good buddy who was in a leadership role who was getting out and hoping to do that. Thankfully, I did, or I probably would have been waiting closer to a year. Kind of got calls randomly to drive out to random places in Texas for, sleep studies and stuff like that. A lot of this stuff, if they listened when you told them, could have saved a bunch of money and time on both sides. But then I ended up having 5 separate psych evals because for whatever reason, one wasn't good. That was infuriating. Weren't really good at listening when you said things. So it was a lot of an uphill battle and a lot of frustration, feeling like you weren't being heard and you were kind of just like another number.
Right. So, man, I actually want to hear a little bit of how you and Nick met, just because I know therapy for you guys started there. So, Nick, you want to go ahead and start introducing that subject?
Yeah, absolutely, man. So I had met Joe through a mutual friend of ours, Gunnar, who has been on the show a couple times already. He had introduced us. It was totally random. Said, "Hey, man, I got this buddy, and we're meeting up for drinks later. You want to come?" Yeah, absolutely. I'm there. I'm in. So all right, cool. Hopped in the truck, went over, and I met this super weird dude, right? And then I got to sitting there talking to him, and him and I start kind of bullshitting back and forth. And then him and I kind of looked at each other and we're like, man, we could do something here, So I ended up, after about a week or so, I ended up moving in with him for a little bit.
Fuck
And then
yeah.
him and I got to talking, and we started to realize that, you know, we're pretty similar in a lot of different ways, in the ways that we kind of handle things, and the ways that we go about things, and the ways that we respond to certain stimuli and certain stuff, you know. And that's pretty much where our friendship started. You know, a lot of talk sitting around a campfire just bullshitting, and then kind of, you know, later on, as the fire kind of dwindles down and the wood kind of goes, we kind of get into the nitty-gritty of things, you know.
Yeah. So Joe, would you mind, you know, just because I don't think people understand realities of what a veteran goes through. Like they, you know, they see it on TV. It's all been made really Hollywood, but you know, they're just like, oh, so-and-so's down, and then they move on. And then they just, you know, they don't get like a full graphic picture of, you know, how this really can mess somebody up.
Yeah. So, I mean, Hollywood does a good job at pretty much glorifying anything that they touch. And a lot of those things really shouldn't be glorified because they're not as sexy when they happen as they are in the movies. You know, somebody goes down, you're now dealing with, you know, you knew that kid, you knew his family, he was married, you knew his wife, you knew his backstory. Maybe you met his parents when you went home on leave. You know, probably prior to this patrol, you guys were jaw jacking, screwing around, smoking cigarettes, checks. 20 minutes into it, he's not there anymore. And, you know, it's a surreal thing to have to deal with. And it haunts you for a long time. Sitting there dealing with, you know, seeing faces when you're trying to sleep, or hearing screams and things like that. And, you know, the Army's, they're not really equipped to handle that type of trauma. They're good at teaching, like, ignore and override, you know, work a 3-meter rule and stuff like that. But they're really not good at being like, hey, here's a very serious issue. Like, this actually should probably get dealt with before it consumes you and really tears you up.
Right. Yeah, dude. So I know, like with me going through it, you know, I've lost a few buddies to suicide. And it's not fun. It's not fun at all. So, you know, you go, and we'll get into this a little bit with Jacob, because Jake has actually spot on experience with it too, where it's like, hey, I'm feeling some type of way, you know, my buddy just passed away, or somebody I knew just passed away, or, you know, whatever it is. And then your chain of command is just like, oh shit, man, sorry. Go to the next objective, you know, and it really sucks. And Jacob, what are some of your experiences with that?
So yeah, basically just going off what you said, you know, we were on our way to a training, and, you know, I got a call from my dad. Hey, you know, cousin Ben just passed away. And our family was always really close, you know, every holiday we spent together. From Indiana, you know, a lot of families up there are very close all the way down, and it feels like direct family. But when you tell your command that, and, you know, it's a cousin, it's not direct family, there's nothing they can do about that. So that was at the beginning of this month-long field rotation, and you have to suck it down and keep going. And you're watching your family go through all this stuff, and you want to be there for them, but you can't, because you have duties, you know, that are, you know, out of your control. You can't. What are you gonna do? You know. Later in that same field rotation, one of my friends in my unit, battle buddies, if you want to call them, he took his life. And you know, it was a very eerie day. I was at the location where all the mechanics were, and, you know, we got a text saying, hey, blackout. We get back to the tent, and they tell us what happened, and, you know, he's gone. And that's someone that you were close to, someone you saw every day, someone you worked with, someone you shared laughs with, and you get maybe 12 hours to get over it and keep pushing. And that's what the Army expects out of you. So that's how you build yourself. And I think that's one of the areas where it kind of fails you later in life.
Yeah, no, it really does. I remember being there on that rotation, because it was a combo of 289th and 664. We were over there in NTC at Fort Irwin, California. And I remember being outside, we all heard the shot, and we're just like, what the heck is that? You know, like, why? And at first we all thought it was a negligent discharge, you know, somebody cleaning their rifle, didn't clear it properly, whatever it may have been, yada, yada, yada. But then come to find out, dude's, you know, homie's gone.
Yeah, and you know, it's supposed to be, there aren't supposed to be any live rounds there. There's no live rounds. Everybody's supposed to have blanks. And the fact that he was able to get one there from Fort Hood means this was, there had to have been signs beforehand, or there wasn't, you know, and that's what a lot of times happens, is there are no signs. It's always the happiest kid, or the, you know, the kid that seems happiest. And that's the surprising point of it, because you don't know if something's wrong unless you're in his room at night, right next to him. You don't know that he's going through something, or something's going on in life, and
hold
happens
on
quickly.
though. Like, so sure, smiley guy, stuff like that, you know, that it always seems like visually the happiest people are always the most depressed. Got it. But from what I understand about this kid, he was already on some type of watch, whether it be flight risk or suicide watch or whatever it may be. As I understand it, he was going through some stuff at home. And when you were talking about it in our pre-interview, you said something about him writing a bunch of letters.
Yes. So there were letters scattered out next to his cot before it happened. And for the watch and everything, that wasn't known ground level. That was more of a chain of command thing that knew about that. So, you know, ground level, even friends that, you know, were in his platoon and were very close to him, a lot of them even said, you know, they didn't see this happening. They knew he was going through some stuff at home. They knew he was having some girl problems or life problems, what have you. But every person that knew him said the same thing, like, we never expected this to happen. So
yeah, having to see that or know that or experience that, it's just, you know, it really sucks. And it kind of alludes to the fact that, you know, especially in Fort Hood, and I can't attest for everywhere, but out of my own experience, you know, leadership just doesn't care enough. You know, it's like, hey man, if you want me to do a job, cool, I'll do a job. But then they expect you, they're like, hey, I'm not going to tell you where everything is. I'm not going to give you all the resources that you need, but I'm going to say, sort your fucking life out and then come back to us so that we can have you here. And then a lot of the times they say that, but then don't give you the time to sort your life out. And it really, really sucks. So going into that, I do want to touch on a lot of, you know, resources and stuff that you can use if you, the audience, are watching, as far as, you know, getting better and whatnot. Also, if you guys have anything that you guys can say, hey, look, blah, 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 you know, this is what it is. This is kind of like whatever my treatment went. You can always email us at the Tills4Thrills podcast and give us more helpful tips on maybe some alternative methods for treatment. But I do want to talk to Joe, because I know that he went through some sort of alternative method, and he calls it his journey. So not really sure what the treatment process entails. Joe, you want to go ahead and explain that for us?
Yeah, absolutely. Getting out, you know, when you've lost a bunch of buddies and you've lost a bunch of friends, especially in the infantry, you come to find out that having emotions is kind of a luxury and a courtesy that you really can't afford as a leader. And so you become very shut off, and that translates into just being angry all the time, and then, you know, trying to numb that with alcohol. So I had a very, very good childhood friend of mine that I had actually known since I was about 5. We hadn't talked in better part of a decade. And he hits me up one day, and we get to talk, and like not a day had passed. And he starts explaining, you know, this plant medicine and this journey work that he's been doing out in Florida and up in New York. And he was like, dude, you seem like any day you're just about to detonate. He said, you sound angry, you sound distraught, you sound upset. Like, I remember you being a happier dude. He's like, just give it a shot, man. I think this will really help you. And the way he had explained it at the time, I was like, man, I don't need that hippie medicine bullshit. Like, the fuck out of here. But, you know, he was good about it. He stayed on my ass, and Nick and I ended up having a conversation in my carport one night. And he was like, look, man, like, spend the money, take the chance in yourself, pretty much invest in yourself and give it a shot. And was the best thing I ever did. I ended up doing it for about 2.5 years. So I'd get up there. You turn in your cell phone when you get up there, which is incredible. Completely disconnected from everything for about 24 to 48 hours, depending on how long you stay. And everybody was really friendly, extremely warm and inviting, which was kind of a culture shock for me coming from the infantry, where tells you to take and eat, drink water, Charlie Mike, suck it up, get through it. You have these people over here who you wouldn't expect to understand veteran problems, but they were genuinely interested in learning. They really wanted to learn how to help and to be there, and they were incredible at listening. And instead of ostracizing and pushing me out or being like, "Oh, cool, you're just being a bitch," they were like, "No, man, like you actually have some serious problems. Let's get down to it. Let's see where we can help you out at. Let's, you guide us, we guide you." And so my first journey, kicked in what they call a heart opener. I was talking to my therapist. They were like, you seem extremely detached. And I was like, I'm gonna be honest with you. I really don't understand emotions anymore. And so that was a big thing that they helped me with. And my first journey, I fell into this black pit, and the deeper I got, the more comfortable I felt. And it forced me to face some things in myself that I didn't realize I was carrying around and just holding on to. And I came out of that experience physically feeling, 30, 40 pounds lighter. And I think I smiled for the first time, like genuinely, at least a couple years. And it was an incredible experience.
Yeah, man. Excuse me. I remember, I was living with you at the time, and just like you had said, you and I had a conversation, and I said, well, you could spend the $600 and not shit happens, and that's okay. Like it's just money. You can make it back. Then I was like, well, what if you spend the $600 and it changes your life? And you go, well, I think I'm going to do it. And then it was super weird for me because you were just gone for an entire week, and you and I at this point had spent weeks and weeks and weeks like together, not separated side by side. And so it was weird for me, you being gone. And the whole time that you were gone, I was thinking to myself, I wonder what he's going to be like when he comes back. Is there going to be a difference? Is there, like a notable difference? I'm curious to see what he has to say. I remember it was super weird the day that you came back. And you came back and you and I had talked a little bit, and you just seemed so much calmer. So much calmer. Not like in a surreal kind of sense, but just like the way that you moved, the way that you operated, it was just so much, it had so much of a calmer undertone to it. You know what I mean? You weren't as jumpy. You weren't as, not necessarily that you weren't as high speed, but you weren't as like high strung, if you will. So it was super interesting for me to see that. But what you had mentioned that when you had came back out of that your first journey that you had felt a lot lighter. So as I understand it, you went and did this kind of multiple times. What was kind of the progression that you saw in yourself as you were kind of going through these different experiences each time that you went?
So each time that I went, it was the best way I could say it. It was kind of like unlocking characters in 2K, if emotions were characters. But each journey showed me a different aspect of myself. Maybe something that I had buried so deep in myself, like the ability to be happy and just, enjoy the simple things, like a nice sunrise or a good breeze. Nothing too high speed, but the one that really, the two actually that really impacted me the most. One, I had an internal struggle with myself between being like a kinder person and being a gun-toting, overly aggressive grunt. And that was a really interesting one that had a really heavy effect on me afterwards, I thought about for a long time. And then the one after that, I had probably about a 6 hour long journey. That was incredible, where I got to talk to dead friends and, hear their laughs again and see their smiles. And it allowed me to let go and find peace in not being able to, call them anymore, reach out for advice or help them when they needed stuff, or, just sit around a fire in the backyard and bullshit and drink beer. But each journey I went to, I was able to get more of myself back and get closer to feeling like a human being again. And now I'm at a point where it's so hard for me to get like amped up to like an aggressive point. It's wild.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm so glad that you were able to find that alternative medicine, that alternative healing, because not enough people get access to that. Not enough people know enough about it. And it's hard navigating life when you have just that anxiety, that depression, that want or need to either harm yourself or harm others. A lot of people ask me, well, hey man, you did 8 years, you were already over a third of the way there. Like, why didn't you just continue? And I have to tell them, I didn't like who I was becoming. I took a hard look at myself in the mirror, and I lived with just hate all the time. Not enough people really understand that. And it's not like, I just want to go out and hurt everyone or anything like that. But I was losing my patience, with people around me, especially like with my family, dude. I'd get off of work and I'd come home, and it's like, if I have to deal with another fucking stupid thing, I'm just going to lose it, and it's really hard living with that. And I can only imagine how much more that's amplified with people that struggle with PTSD. And just a lot of the stuff that the Army teaches you to do to, like, not necessarily cope with stuff, but move on with your life. It gets instilled in you. And so when you start reacting to certain things, people don't understand. It's like, I'll take, an hour or two, or I'll take a week off or whatever it may be. And then I'll get back into it. And I know Jake had some experience with this because, people definitely looked at him crazy. Jake, you want to go ahead and elaborate on that?
So last year me and my fiance and I, we had a baby last year, and she was in the NICU for 3 or 4 weeks, and she didn't make it. It was a very hard time. I still deal with it every day. It's, something that doesn't go away. But the thing that made me realize that there's a disconnection was, all these people around me, they cried a lot. They showed a lot of emotion, and I was just kind of stonewall. I think I broke down and cried the night it happened, because we had to make a decision. And, that's the hard, I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy, to make that decision. And, after that, it was just kind of numb. And, my job, I worked for a great company, and they were like, take all the time you need. And a week later, I was back at work, and, my manager, he's prior military, he got it. He understood it. He knew it wasn't what was best for me, but it's what I told him I wanted to do. So he let me do it. 6 months down the road, here I am requesting, LOA, because I can't even focus anymore, because it's ate at me so bad. And I tried to take that, the military in me and keep pushing, and it doesn't work. It will get to you eventually. It's not a matter of if, it's when. And, you're going to hit that breaking point. And when you do it, it might not be pretty. I got to the point where it was hard for me to get out of bed every morning. I hated being at work, and that's not who I was, because I love my job. I love the things I do. I race motocross and I play paintball competitively, and it got to the point where I didn't even want to go do that anymore. So I was like, man, something's got to change. Something's not right with me. And that's, when I started to try to find help. And the difference is, when you're in, a lot of the times those behavioral health doctors, they work for the Army. They're trying to check a box and get you out and get the next guy in. And I went in there and told them all of this stuff, and the doctor was like, well, I think you have OCD. And I was like, it's not what I'm here for. And she was like, well, someone will be getting a hold of you soon to set up another appointment. And they never got a hold of me. So I was like, you know what? This is whatever. Keep pushing, right? Get on to the next thing. Keep moving. It'll go away. Well, I think all of us can say that pain never really goes away. It's always there. It's always in the back of your head. And there's certain things you can do to cope with it, but that's really all you can do.
That's crazy, dude. So you go in, you say, hey, I'm fucked up, I'm feeling away, and like, shit's kind of crazy right now, and I'm not who I'm supposed to be right now. And they say, oh, you have obsessive compulsive disorder. What? Like that's ridiculous.
Yeah. And that's how I felt when it happened. I came in here because, I wanted to talk to somebody. And then, you also have it's kind of, now that we're kind of on this, this behavioral health doctor thing, it's, you brought up those statistics earlier. Well, okay. It's a very deflated statistic because, like you said, the Army is 1% of 100% of the US, and 8%, which is a higher percentage than the 100%. That's a pretty big number. That's actually a really large number. If you were to do the math and compare that 8% to the whole 100%, it'd be a lot. And it's also deflated because how many people do you know that would never even go talk to somebody because of, how the people around them would think about them, especially in that line of work.
Sure.
Well, it's also a stigma. To go, to behavioral health while you're active duty or anything, because leadership looks at you like you're weak, and it gets pushed to the side, like they don't make time for you. And I can't speak on all branches, because I was never in the Air Force. I was never in the Marines. I was never in the Navy. I have my experience in the Army, and as I understand it now, we are all Army veterans. So it would be good to have somebody else, on here to talk about it from a different perspective. I know my friend Maestro, he's like, worst day in the Air Force is you don't have access to your email, and maybe the air conditioner's on the fritz, and that's kind of like one of those big differences when you go from branch to branch. But, what are your thoughts, Nick?
So, I mean, I definitely agree. One of the things that has been brought up a couple times is that for the Army specifically, the Army teaches how to push forward. They don't teach how to cope. There's a big distinction between the two. Learning how to push forward is fairly simple. It's fairly easy. Hey man, you can do this, 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 and this. You're ready to rock and roll. You're ready to keep it moving. But then when it's time to cope with things, you'll go to behavioral health, or you'll go to, the TMC or whatever it is that you go to try to talk to somebody. They don't have shit for you, or, what it turns into is either you don't get to really talk to anybody about anything because you just somebody just stonewalls you, or what it turns into is you're getting help. But the reality of the situation is you're going to behavioral health once a week and just bitching about your job. And it's just somebody listening, taking notes. And there's no advice being given. There's no medication being tried out. There's no alternative ways to cope. There's no phone numbers to dial. You have nothing. So, what do you do? It would be nice to see, when we talked about in a previous episode, that's kind of where it falls under the whole, should marijuana be allowed as a medicinal thing for service members that are suffering? I don't know. I mean, what should we allow? What shouldn't we allow? It's either, someone needs to put in place actual ways to teach how to cope, or you allowed these service members access to different medicinal treatments that have either, I don't want to say like been like criminalized, right? But aren't, normal to, Army doctrine or military doctrine. Excuse me. Give
Well,
them access to these things.
I
Say,
think
let's see what happens.
I think it just boils down to the argument that it's like, hey man, we'll prescribe you a whole bunch of opioids or narcotics or whatever to get over your whatever it is you're going over, instead of being like, well, look at the statistics with the health risks of cannabis, or look at the health risks of X, Y, and Z. Like I say cannabis just because it's like probably the most common to turn to whenever we're talking about treatment methods. But there are so many other things you can do. Like I know they use psilocybin, AKA magic mushrooms in a lot of the treatments. And, at what point does it become more healthy for you, or at what point does it become an abuse problem for substances and stuff like that? So, we can get into all that stuff, later, but right now it's just, how do you help the individual? And I think, again, going back to, they don't cater treatment plans for the person. They do a blanket statement, oh, you just have mental illness, you have anxiety, you have depression, or you got bipolar disorder, or whatever it may be, instead of saying, okay, cool, like this person's suffering from PTSD, how do we help him? Okay, who is this person first and foremost? What have they seen? What do they enjoy to do as a pastime, and how can we use that to effectively help them in the future? And I kind of want to see what Joe thinks about it.
I mean, there's a lot that needs to be reviewed and revised and redone especially when it comes to mental health. There's that old joke of, physical scars heal, psychological scars are forever. But if you don't treat it, that's a very true thing. They will absolutely destroy you and eat you up if it's not something that you keep checks and balances on and stay ahead of. But for instance, through the therapy that I was doing, the journey work, they were a very big advocate due to the studies of psilocybin for me taking psilocybin. And honestly, I think that was probably the best thing for my PTSD. It helped me to have better perspectives in a lot of ways. It helped me to, they also helped me as well. Half of it's plant medicine and half of it was the incredible staff that I worked with. But having that guidance when you're now open and calmer and willing to hear things made all the difference in the world, especially when you know that like they actually care and they want you to be healthy and they want to help you, versus having that issue therapist from the military that's like, oh, that really sounds like that sucks, so we're going to send you back to your unit. Your unit's going to publicly shame you for seeking out help. And yeah, if you haven't killed yourself by next week, we'll see how it goes.
Right. And I do want to kind of touch on, we can give our no shit there I was stories all we want, but what are the events leading up to you coming to the realization that on today's episode of Fucked Up, how fucked up is fucked up,
Yeah. So I've been in a leadership role for that point, better part of 5 years. I had seen a lot of my soldiers struggle with stuff. I kept putting my personal problems to the side, making the excuse, well, I'll deal with it later. I'll deal with it later. I'll deal with it later. I lost a lot of friends and a lot of young soldiers that really shouldn't have died during that time frame to suicide, or some cases fratricide, but mostly to suicide. And after a while, you just get so cold to it. But even with compartmentalizing, you can only shove so many things into a box until it's overflowing. And that's finally the point that I hit. I was scared because I was getting out of the military. I didn't know what I was going to do with my life. I loved being in the infantry, but the way that it was going, I couldn't really stick with anymore. My body was breaking down. I had stuff I needed to fix. I was really mad at myself for not being able to physically be top notch anymore. I was mad because losing friends, and there was nothing I could do about it. I was mad because I wasn't always able to help my soldiers the way I wished I had been able to due to, yellow tape from the Army. Then it just, between that, kickstarting a divorce and having a shoulder surgery, all at seemingly the same time, I finally just snapped.
Right.
I drowning.
I do want to kind of touch on a little bit. So you went through your journeys and it made you better for it, which is always a plus side. How did you get into those resources?
So it was my buddy Jason. Again, I'd known him since I was like 5. We used to go to summer camps together and whatnot. And he had been going. He was in the Israeli army for a while, and somebody had geared him towards it, I guess, after he got out of the Israeli military and came back to the U.S. And I mean, he stayed on my ass, and I'm glad he did. That was the greatest thing a friend could have done for me, was just not let me make an excuse for, oh, I'm fine, or hey, I'll deal with it later, or it's not a big deal, or really anything that would kind of deter from me really having to deal with my own shit.
Right. So with that said, Jacob, how are you handling stuff now, and tell us a little bit about your journey in the whatever therapies or situations you're in to try to help out your PTSD.
So, I started talking to a therapist. They started prescribing me medications, and we'll get on the medications later, like you said. But it's more something that I had to figure out myself, and I guess that's the hardest part of it. Is like him, he was able to find that alternative medicine. The way I cope is, or help myself, is through sports. And like I said earlier, I race motocross and I play paintball competitively. Then with paintball, I have a good team around me, a good family, and it's one of those things where, especially with the care like we were talking about, it doesn't get much better. So I'm going through the VA for behavioral health right now, and the behavioral health specialist I have works for the VA, and it's weird because you can almost tell, not necessarily that they don't care, but that they're just there to do their job, if that makes sense. I told her everything I went through. I went a couple months. She was like, how's everything been? I told her everything I went through. And you could tell it when your therapist starts to choke up a little bit, it's not a nice thing to see. And, they're always like, well, for my instance, she's like, well, maybe you should start seeing, someone 2 or 3 times a week. Well, I have a full-time job. I can't do that. Not to mention the fact that it's already hard enough for us to try to talk to people anyway. And then you do find someone that you talk to and someone you're comfortable with, and they're like, well, I got to pass you on. And then you're just kind of restarting the steps again. You got to go to someone else and tell them your story and relive everything all over again. And it's a cycle. And for me, myself, I needed a break. That's, and that's what's helped me a lot. I needed a break since I got out of the military. It's been nothing but go, go, go. And every little thing that's happened, it's just been on to the next thing. Sometimes you need that break. Sometimes you got to take a minute to breathe and kind of let life stop for a minute. When my daughter passed away, that was one of the first things I said the next day was, well, life doesn't stop. You got to keep pushing. And that's part of the things that made me realize I was disconnected, because like I said, I was at work a week later, and my fiance, she's still at home. She's still crying almost every day. The nursery was all set up. We went through all that stuff. But for me, it was, like I said, I was emotionless. So it's not something, like I said earlier, it doesn't go away. And all you can really do is learn to live with it. And that's all I've tried to do, is learn to live with it. And sometimes you can do it on your own and sometimes you can't. And that's one of the things I learned, is I needed a minute. Life goes fast, and if you don't stop to take care of yourself, it's going to bite you in the ass. And
right.
That's, yeah.
Yeah, no, No, you're absolutely 100% correct, man. Just to kind of relate a little bit, I had a good buddy of mine that he had committed suicide as well. And what was weird about it was that, we were sitting there smoking and joking on a weekend. I can't remember if it was a Saturday or a Sunday or what day it was, but we were sitting there smoking and joking, and then we go to work on Monday, and then the battalion pulls everybody into the auditorium. They go, "Hey, so and so, committed suicide. This is what happened." Well, my other good buddy of mine who was also friends with him as well, it was to the point where there was so much speculation around him committing suicide that for the longest time, I mean, even up to a couple years ago, I mean, we just couldn't fathom it. We couldn't believe it. Like, we thought that he had been murdered. It was that weird of a situation. That weekend he was telling us, yeah, man, my old lady's got our daughter on the way. I just bought my new truck. He was about to move into his new house that he had got, and everything was going great. And then, a couple days later, we come into work and he's gone. You know, so it's really weird, because you go to the VA and you open up about some of these things, and like you said, you can tell the moment that they walk into the room, the second they walk into the room and turn around or shut the door, and then they turn around and look at you, "Hey, how's it going? My name is Dr. So and so." You can smell it on them that they're just here because you're the next dude in line. That they have to work through this with you. They don't want to be there. And then they turn and look at you and go, "So what's going on?" You know? And you get to a point where when you've talked with these people so many times and you've gone through so many doctors that it's like half of it is that you want the help and that you need to get help because you're having nightmares, or you're having flashbacks, or you're spacing out and you're angry all the time. So that you need to talk to somebody, that you need to get help. But then the other half of it is, man, how many times am I going to have to do this shit? How many times am I going to have to say this stupid ass shit? You know what I mean? Like you don't even care. This is the 8th time I've been here. You're the 7th person that I've talked to. At what point is something going to happen?
Right.
How many times am I going to have to go over this same example? How many times am I going to have to relive this exact same moment just for some new person to come in? Like, I don't want to have to explain myself again to some new person. So it's super difficult because you go to the VA for help, and a lot of the times when you're at the VA, it's just you kind of just get jerked around this way or that way, and then nothing gets solved. So it's tough for a lot of people because everybody at some point or another, they have to draw their line in the sand, and wherever you draw the line is wherever you happen to draw it. But you might draw your line in the sand way further down the beach than somebody else might. you know so what I'm curious is to kind of cut back to Joe a little bit and see how his experience was with dealing with the VA. I mean, did they really try to help, or was it kind of just more of that whole, "Hey man, this is the 7th doctor that you talked to and go fuck yourself"? You know what I mean?
Yo, make sure you get that flipping the tables and shit in.
Oh yeah, no, that's actually while I was still in. That solved a lot for getting the bullet finally cut out of my leg. Uh, fuck that guy. But no, Nick's, both of them are absolutely correct on what they said. It was a night and day difference because I had started the journey work, right as I was getting out, so I was able to see what like good mental health looked like with people who actually care and want to help you.
Right.
And like Nick said, with drawing the line, I got to my 3rd VA therapist, where again you're sitting there re-explaining yourself, and maybe 5 minutes into it, I was like, you know what, fuck this. Like, I could see you don't care, and maybe you do, maybe you don't, I don't know, but what, am I talking to you again next week, or is it going to be somebody else new? So we're still at step 1, a month into trying to get help, 2 months into trying to get help, 3 months into trying to get help, and it was infuriating. So that's when I really like dove head on strictly into the journey work, and I was like, I don't want the VA having anything to do with this, because they're either going to hold it against me or they're not going to care. I'm going to seem like an insane person and still not get help. So I'm going to go with what's working and the people who actually care versus meeting 10 new people in the next 6-7 months. It was extremely infuriating process.
Right. So could you just do me a favor? Because I know we spoke about it offline a little bit. And I remember something about shoving something down somebody's throat or something like that. I really want you to tell that story to the audience, man.
So back when I was a much angrier person, as one is after enough time in combat arms, I'd had a couple surgeries trying to get a bullet out of my leg, so that was its own process that I was moderately infuriated with. And finally get this doctor, and he decides he doesn't want to do it. And I was like, well, this sucks. It's waking me up. It's causing me pain on rocks. It's slowing me down on movements. Like, this is coming out one way or another. So after he blew me off, my solution was just to harass the ungodly shit out of this poor man. I'd go into his office and like super glue shit to the walls, or pull stuff out of his drawers and just kind of throw it all over the place, or
just make his life wildly inconvenient, huh?
Yeah, I'd go find him at the hospital during lunch and take food off of his tray, and dirty talk him a little bit till he got uncomfortable and left. Anything and everything just to absolutely fuck with this guy. And after a couple months of me just driving him absolutely insane, he was finally like, "What will make you fuck off?" And I was like, "Just do your job, man." I was like, "Look, cut this shit out of my leg. Stitch it back up. Don't stitch it back up. I don't really give a shit. Just get the round out of my leg. I'll fuck off. You don't have to see me again." Yeah, no, that was an infuriating. But the story that you were talking about was my fifth psych eval, with me threatening to force feed the dude his fucking computer monitor. He had we're sitting like kneecap to kneecap. It's this older dude. I'm already annoyed because it's my fifth psych eval, and he had muttered something under his breath. And I was like, "Hey sir, I didn't hear what you said. Do you mind repeating yourself?" He ignores me and just keeps clicking away. And I was like, "Hey man, I didn't hear what you said. Can you say it again?" He just keeps clicking away. I was like, "Look, motherfucker, I will throat fuck you with your fucking computer monitor." He goes ahead and he signs off on easily irritable with high violent tendencies on my VA packet. And I was like, "God damn it. Like, get fucked." And I ended up having to leave due to security not being too happy about me threatening an old man with high impact violence. But
Jesus Christ, man. I mean, that's hilarious, man. And I could only imagine that guy just being like, "Oh shit, this guy's fucking serious," like, maybe I should, kind of talk to him.
It was the end of me getting psych evals, so I guess that was cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it was absolutely infuriating.
Yeah, so real quick, I kind of just wanted to pick your guys' brains a little bit. And, with both of your guys' experience with PTSD, I kind of just wanted to see, what you guys thought about what are some kind of different ways that maybe the VA can go about navigating, PTSD differently in each veteran. I mean, obviously listen, let's cut the shit. We all know that not the VA can't sit here and hand tailor an experience for every single veteran individually. Like they just flat out, they just don't have the resources for it. So I'm not going to say that, oh, well, we should do this or but I'm kind of curious, Jake and I, and well, all of us really have kind of navigated the VA systems a little bit. But I kind of wanted to start with Jake. I mean, is there anything that you have that comes to mind on what maybe the VA could do differently to help veterans out?
So I feel like the VA goes by, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And they think it's not broke, but I'm here to tell you differently. I mean, if it wasn't broke, we'd have a lot better outcome, and it wouldn't be 22 a day.
Sure.
I think part of the issue is they're so set in the old ways, and even though that's, you know, it's after military, they're still very close-minded on certain things. Like you go tell a VA provider that you smoke weed to get through some things, and they're like, what? Like, and you know, but you go tell an actual doctor who is not paid by the VA or the DoD or or the government, and like, you know, hey, that might work for you. And it sucks, you know, like like Joe, you know, he found the alternative medicine, and that's what really helped him. But you know, if you were to bring that up to the VA, they'd look at you like you're crazy. Well, here's an example of someone that it helped really well. And I think that's a lot of it is the open-mindedness, and they haven't changed practices, you know, and who knows, they may have. I don't work at the VA, so I can't say that for 100%, but you know, outside looking in, that's what it feels like. Another one is you can call the VA and set up an appointment. You know, depending on which VA you're at, I know the Temple VA is really bad at it. You're like, hey, I need to talk to somebody. Like, all right, we can get you in like October. Well, it's March, so that doesn't help me. And you know, that's another big one is how long it takes to talk to somebody, and they want to talk to you before they refer you out. Well, that referral appointment can be months out, and some people don't have that much time. So
Right. No, absolutely, man. You know, and like one of the like super big annoyances that you know, like at least with my personal experience with the VA is, you know, I've been through a couple different VA systems. You know, when I got out, I had moved to Arizona, then I was in Texas, and then I came back to, you know, where I'm from in Michigan. And I'll say that that I've been through the Temple system too. And for example, I had this was the first time, and mind you, I had been in VA healthcare for about 2 years prior to this, but this was the first time when I went to the Temple VA system. It was the first time that I had been assigned a PCM. It was the first time that anybody had told me about a veteran's ID card. I didn't even know that that was a thing. And my very first experience with a PCM was we got into a discussion about like pain management and stuff, you know, because like my back's a little bit messed up, and you know, I got weak knees, you know. And so we were talking about pain management, and she had asked me, you know, hey, is ibuprofen okay? And of course, you know, as a veteran, you're like, fuck me, like for real, dude. Like this is what we have to offer. This is top notch fucking service, and all you can do is give me a 600 milligram ibuprofen. So I say, hey, listen, like ibuprofen's fine, but I'm here to tell you right now, my body personally responds better to naproxen than it does to ibuprofen, you know. And then, you know, the appointment continues a little bit, and then at the end of the appointment, the PCM had called me a liar. She was like, no, you're lying, you know, you never said that. And I go, that's exactly what I said. I just told you that my body responds better to naproxen. She goes, no, you're a liar, you never said that. So I'm like, fuck this, dude. Like, dude, like, I'm just gonna go ride my motorcycle, bro. Like, fuck this, you know. And so I just walk out. So, you know, I guess what I'm trying to say is it's incredibly infuriating sometimes, you know, because like you said, you go there for help, and then sometimes you get called a liar, or you get called this, or you say, you know, you get told to do this and you do it, and fuck all comes of it, you know. So it's so hard, dude, you know. Like and the crazy part is, right, is that different VA systems are totally different, you know. For example, my experience with the Arizona VA was basically non-existent. I mean, I filed like some claims there and stuff, but as far as actually getting like healthcare, I mean, you know, I like, for example, I went to the Arizona hospital like campus for the VA, and I had an appointment, and I was going in there and I was explaining, hey, listen, you know, I'm having some issues with anxiety. Is there anything that we can do? And they basically gave me Benadryl, which, to the VA's credit, right,
Jesus Christ.
some antihistamines have shown to like help alleviate symptoms of anxiety. But look at me real quick. Look at me, everybody in the audience. Fucking Benadryl, dude. That's what we're talking about. You know what I mean?
I don't have an itch. I don't have an itch. I got anxiety.
Yeah, bro. Like, yo, my leg ain't itchy, dude. I'm freaking the fuck out. and you're gonna give me Benadryl? Are you out of your mind? Right? So like the Arizona VA system, I mean, it was like 10 pounds of shit in a 5-gallon pail. You know what I mean? Like you couldn't accomplish anything, right? But then I come to Michigan, and now that I'm here, I have the best PCM that I've ever had. I got assigned a case manager. I live in Flint. I got assigned a case manager down in Ann Arbor, which is where like the big campus is. And my case manager was great. He would call me like probably once or twice a month and go, "Hey man, how you doing?" And sometimes I'd be like, "Oh, I'm okay." Like, it's going decent. And other times I would just sit there and just motherfuck over the phone. I'd be like, "Man, let me tell you about this dumb shit that happened to me today." And he would just sit there and be like, "Hell yeah, dude, tell me." You know, so it's weird to see that, different VA systems have, different kind of, I don't want to say levels of care, but you get treated differently in different systems. For example, in Temple, you might get treated one way, but if you go to Dallas or, Dallas Fort Worth, or you go to San Antonio or El Paso, like their system might be totally different. So I guess, Joe, I have a question for you. I know that you've kind of moved around a little bit since you've gotten out. Have you gone through a different VA system, and was your experience with that new system, if you have, any different than the previous one?
Yeah, so I had actually, it's funny that we're all bringing up Temple. My first few VA things were through Temple, and that was an ungodly nightmare. Nothing but horrendous things to say about Temple's VA system. But then when I got up to Fort Worth, man, I was in and out in 5 or 10 minutes. They were incredible at blood draws. They were incredible at anything that they called me up there for. I wasn't sitting around for 6 hours, waiting to get called on. If I showed up when I was supposed to be there, within 5 minutes, they were like, "Oh, cool, you're actually here. All right, cool. Let's knock this out real quick so you can get back to your day." They were attentive. They were on top of stuff. They were amazing to work with. It was a night and day difference.
That's actually really fantastic. Because for me personally right now, like I'm fresh out the Army. February 22nd, ETS 2025, So I'm actually in the middle of trying to navigate that, and I'm about to go knock down some doors on Monday to see what the hell, because it's been a month since I went and registered and submitted my claims, and I still haven't even gotten a call back. And that's here in Temple. Well, now I'm looking to move to San Antonio, and I got to, I'm going to have to transfer all my stuff down to San Antonio, figure out what's what, and try to navigate all that. And hell, even now, just thinking about it, my heart's beating out of my chest. I'm getting anxious. I'm getting freaked out. I'm like, what am I going to do? And the hardest part now isn't just going through the VA. It's also, I just graduated from my school's program to get certified in logistics and stuff like that. And I've put in multiple applications, and everything's online, so it really sucks. You don't get any of that FaceTime value where it's like, here's my resume, I'm meeting you, this is who I am. And people look at that and they're like, "Oh, he's a veteran." Well, and he just got out.
And it goes one of two
the
ways.
VA. Yeah, he's like, "Oh," and he's going to have to go through the VA, which means he's going to have to be an appointment that we can't tell him no for, shit like that. And it's really difficult trying to get a job too. And that raises your anxiety through the roof. And that, it could be hard, especially when you have a family, man. But with that said, we are an hour, 3 minutes in. We are going to take a quick break. And honestly, I'd like to hear the audience's thoughts on anything that they might be feeling. They might be, thinking about, reeling from whatever they're doing.
Talk to us, man. Let us know.
Yeah, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, or want to see some topics on the show, you can always email us at the Tills4Thrills podcast at gmail.com. We're also on every major social media platform, which took a really long time to do.
Go on and follow, man. Go on, holler at your boys.
Again, if you are feeling some type of way and you need to talk to somebody, you can always call the Veterans Crisis Line, dial 988, and then just press 1. So, like I said, with that said, we're going to take a break. Go ahead and grab your lickies and chewies, use the restroom, do whatever you got to do. Thank you.
Hey, how's it going, everybody? Welcome back to the Tills for Thrills podcast. I hope you guys are doing all right. You guys got any questions, comments, concerns, go on, email us down below at the Tills for Thrills podcast at gmail.com. Hope you guys are having a great day. Anything else you guys want to follow us on, you can go on and follow us right on here on this bad boy. Hope you guys got your lickies and chewies done, your pee-pees and poo-poos done while we were on that break. I know that I'm having issues with my toilet. It kept running, so I had to go on and catch that motherfucker. But I think that, now that we've kind of got some of the topics that we wanted to talk about out of the way, excuse me, I think that we're going to go on ahead and open up the floor and not necessarily bullshit, but, we can just kind of talk about what we want to talk about. So I'll go on ahead and pull everybody on up.
What up? What up?
You guys there?
They got their mics muted.
Silly goose.
Jake, you there?
Yeah, I was trying to find out my AirPod died. I was trying to use the other one, but it doesn't want me to. So
You're the brother.
Technical difficulties.
hopefully there's no echo. Sorry.
Yeah, man. So, oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Nick.
No, go ahead. I was going to take a little sip of my juicy poo here.
So we've been talking for the better part of an hour about issues surrounding PTSD and care involved in trying to get yourself better afterwards. But like Nick said, we kind of wanted to open up the floor and just kind of get personal with you guys and Jacob, I know you said you got a new job recently. You're living in Round Rock. Tell us what that's like and what that is.
Yeah, so when we were actually talking about different levels of care, I wanted to interject real quick. And I moved to Round Rock, and I go to the Austin VA now, and I will say it is night and day difference from going to Temple.
How so?
Well, for one, I called and said I needed an appointment. I had an appointment the next week. With my
nice.
PCM, which in Temple, if you need an appointment with your PCM, you're looking at months.
Yeah, good luck.
Yeah.
Well, is that like a is it because like the Temple VA is flooded with veterans now?
So that's what I was gonna say. I think it's hard for those areas. Like Temple, which is right next to Fort Hood. I mean, base of Fort Hood. Yeah, it's right. It's 20 minutes from Fort Hood, and that's the VA that takes care of everybody on Fort Hood. There's a small VA center over in Cove, but they don't really do much until after the fact. So it's flooded, and there are a lot of veterans in Austin as well, but I think the veteran to regular civilian ratio is way different in that area. From Cove to Waco, it's probably 75% veteran based.
Right.
Yeah.
So I knew offline Joe and us had a conversation where different types of profession can also kind of alleviate some of those stress factors that comes with PTSD. And Joe, you want to tell us a little bit of how that felt when you got your current job?
Yeah, that it was kind of surreal. I got really lucky with the company that I got brought on by. I pretty much work with a bunch of disgruntled vets, so we all understand each other. But I mean, coming out of combat arms and being on this side of the world in a non-violent capacity is a first for me. So coming over here, I was expecting things to be at relatively around the same threat level you'd see in like Afghanistan or Iraq or Syria or something like that. And it couldn't be farther from the truth. And it took me a good little bit to, even with all the therapy and all the help, to not immediately assume that these people were going to become, in essence, like potential threats or potential targets or what have you.
Right.
But they've shown nothing but genuine kindness. The people I work with have been very understanding, especially during that like month and a half break-in period that it really took me to kind of ease back up a little bit and not be on the edge as much.
So were you nervous kind of like coming into this, like obviously, with your background as an infantryman and going through the therapy and stuff, were you kind of hesitant when you had first went to go over there?
I wouldn't say hesitant. I was excited because I had that sense of purpose back in my life. I've pretty much been a glorified hermit, other than school the last few years, where I still really don't fuck with people that much.
Sure.
I'll pop out after to go catch up with, the people I'm close with, or like a family thing. But outside of that, like, I still really don't like people, so I don't I don't really
Right,
go
yeah.
out.
Yeah.
think
Well, I mean,
that-
it's good that you can do that kind of work and work with a whole bunch of, veterans that you can relate to, and then, still be able to be in that tiny kind of group where you don't have to interact with too many of those people that you hate, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, be
'Cause-
around like-minded people and stuff.
Yeah, so I know that for me, it's like when I go out and it's just a bunch of civilians who've never been in service before, it's really hard to relate to them. It's really hard to, kind of interact with them now because they just don't really understand, like, and the other thing too is I think we had talked about it a little bit in the first episode, Nick, where, you just don't know how to process that thank you for your service type shit.
Yeah.
And they kind of put you on a pedestal and it's like, fuck off, man. Like
Yeah.
I don't
Thank you for
you
your
know?
cervix.
Yeah,
Well,
right,
that's-
exactly.
you mentioned I got a new job and I moved to Round Rock, and that's one of the nice things about the industry I work in. I mean, I'm an auto tech. I don't, if you've ever been in a shop, there isn't a single PG shop in the nation. And the nicest part about it is, I can tell jokes that, we tell them all the time. If you told that joke to a civilian, they'd look at you like, what the hell did
Be
you
like,
just
lock
say?
this dude up.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
throw
You've got
away
an
the
HR
key,
complaint on your
and
hands.
yeah, and I can, it helps where I work because I can make those jokes at work and they make them back. And, it kind of makes you feel at home because one of the things that you try to grasp after you leave the military is, that brotherhood feeling you had and just the be who you are. You have a crazy thought, a crazy joke that may be the weirdest, craziest, darkest joke you've ever heard. And the guy next to you is going to laugh at it. Meanwhile, anybody else would be like, what the hell did he just say? And,
Yeah. Well, what's that? Sorry.
and it's that's how working in a shop is. You can tell that joke and it almost feels like home, I guess you could say. So
Yeah. Well, and I know that like one of the big things about like getting out of the military specifically is, and especially too, and it's more true the longer that you've been in, right? But a big thing is when you get out, man, like it's just weird. It's just fucking weird, dude. You get out and then poof, like you're a civilian again, and then they hand you your 214 and thank you for your cervix. See ya. You know what I mean? Nobody calls,
yeah.
nobody texts, but then you're around a bunch of civilians and then you go, fuck, dude, like how do I interact with these people? Like how do I act like a normal person in public, So it's a really, really weird feeling. I know, at least, it was for me, and I know for a lot of my buddies it was too. They would come and ask me like, man, how do you act normal, dude? And I'm like, I'll be honest with you. I don't know if you've ever seen that episode of SpongeBob where he pulls up and he's like rounded out and he goes, "Hi, I'm normal." I'm like, that's what I try to do, dude.
yeah.
I'm like, this is what I think a normal human being would respond with in this situation. Like people come up to me in the middle of Walmart or something like that, and they go, "Yo, hey man, so and so, like I like your shirt," and I have to try not to act mentally challenged, and like I could perceive, because in my head, dude, I'm like, I'm in my own world. I'm cruising through the aisle, but in my head, I'm like, you know what I mean, in my head. And then somebody's like, "Hey, man, yada yada yada." I'm like, "Oh shit, real people,"
Yeah. Yeah.
So
No,
I mean,
man.
but that's how it is, though, dude.
Going I actually want Jake to expand a little bit
Fucking
on his paintball journey and how he got into it, because so me personally, I like the idea of paintball. I went paintballing once as a kid. I just can't really afford any of the gear, and getting into it was kind of difficult for me growing up. So how did that come about for you?
So I didn't have a dirt bike. And that's, what I did most of the time. I didn't have a dirt bike. One of my buddies was like, man, there's a paintball field in Harker Heights, which if you're ever stationed at Fort Hood, it's 10 minutes down the road from Killeen.
Yep.
And he was like, man, just come with me one time. I was like, oh man, that stuff's gay, And I was like, nah, it's not really my cup of tea, I guess. And I was like, you know what? I'll try it. So I went and played, had a rental gun, played it one time, went home, dropped $800 on a full kit, and here I am.
Yeah, dude. Just say, hey, man, I liked it so much. Here's $1,000. You know, take my money.
I didn't start playing on the team. I played for probably 6 months, and then I went after going consistently. One of the guys that we play with over there was like, "Hey, man, I know someone trying to start a team. You'd be great." They asked me to play. They wanted me to bring you on too. So, here we are. Our team name is Syntex in 10 City. That's the letter N, the number 10, and then City. Wordplay, intensity. And we're out here at Waxahachie competing at USXBL right now. And it's great. And like I said earlier, it's nice to find something like that. Because like Joe, dude, I'm not a people person. You can ask my fiance. I don't go in public. I used to love concerts. Don't do it anymore. Hate big crowds. Used to go out. I mean, Julian, we could share stories all day about our times going out together. And I don't even find the joy in it anymore. And you can call it getting older, but I think a lot of it just has to do with, people really irritate me.
Yeah.
And
I can't go out to bars anymore, man.
Like
I'll go to a bar and play pool or whatever, and that's fine, as long as it's not like super crowded. So like I'll go to Gatesville, which is about a 45-minute drive from where I'm at currently, because I know small town, like nobody's really doing anything, nobody's really
bar
out.
action.
Yeah, so like I'll go into there and I'll play some pool. I'll drink a couple of beers. That's about it. But like as far as what we used to do, man, going club hopping and bar hopping and shit like that, I cannot do that anymore, man.
Dude, it's my fiance's dream to go to Coyote Ugly and get on the bar. She fulfilled it. Last month I had a tournament in San Antonio and we went up down there and it was cool. And, luckily it wasn't nearly as crowded as it was back in 2021, I think is when we went.
Something like that.
Yeah, it was fairly dead. Now, I didn't have a bad time, but I told her, I was like, I don't want to go because last time I went, it was shoulder to shoulder. You couldn't move around. I don't want to go.
Actually, I think it was like 2019.
Yeah, and she talked me into it. And, luckily it wasn't bad. It's the only reason I stayed is because we got there and it was pretty empty. Decent crowd. The bar was full, but that was really it. So, the people. I have a short fuse, and I guess that's something that a lot of us form. I used to be able to shove a lot down before it got to me, and lately it's someone cuts me off, and I'm losing my shit.
Speaking of a short fuse, Joe, how do you alleviate some of that stuff?
Ask that again. My connection had cut out with this lovely third world internet I'm rocking.
I said, speaking of short fuses, what do you do to alleviate some of that stress?
I've gotten better about having a short fuse. When Nick first met me.
What happened to Jake?
Yeah, I think we lost him.
Oh. Continue, my friend.
Ooh. When Nick first met me, he'll tell you like, you fucking breathed wrong. I was trying to put you in a wall.
I would say something, you'd turn around, you go, what? And I'll go, damn, bro, shit. What's wrong with you? You'd be like, oh, my bad.
I was wired and just angry at everything. Oh, he's back. Hello, welcome back.
There he is.
But luckily my wife now is understanding of a lot of those things. Like Jacob was saying, not really doing well in crowds, not really doing well around people. The closest to a crowd that I'll get to is like when I go play airsoft. But I'm there to shoot them, so for me, I'm excited because it's a target-rich environment. I don't have to talk to them.
Yeah. Well, and what's funny too, man, is like with what Jake said about paintball. You remember when you tried to? Well, you didn't try to convince me. You did convince me to go to like that airsoft match, and I was like, I don't know, man. Airsoft is that shit is fucking gay. And I was like, I'm not going to that shit. And you were like, nah, man, come on, just try it out. And then you and I are like running around. running around the field, and I'm like, I could get behind this. I got a shovel. I'm kind of digging it. So I'm like, it's not bad. Obviously, I don't have the money to go drop on a little setup or anything. But you go, hey man, yeah, just use this weapon system right here. All right, shit.
Yeah, airsoft for me. I experienced airsoft before I joined the army, so it was like I think we did like a retreat at the church one time, and a bunch of kids brought their airsoft guns, and so they were passing them out like, oh yeah, let's go do this or whatever. And I was like, cool, I'm gonna like try to be all commando and shit.
Cool guy. Yeah.
I won, so that was cool. And all I had was a fucking airsoft pistol.
Hey man, not bad though.
Not bad though. Not bad though. But so it was a pretty fun time. And after that, I was just like, oh, I'd love to do it if I could justify spending the money for airsoft. And honestly, it boiled down to after that happened, I had ended up going through a divorce, and then a couple years later I had met my current wife now, who we've been together for 12 years and have 2 kids. So just the justification for going and doing things. I think the best thing I ever did for myself was purchase a motorcycle, which unfortunately I wrecked back in May because some idiot was pulling out of a fucking parking lot the wrong way.
Had to lay her down, man.
Shit. I think I laid down harder than my bike fucking did, bro, because I went face first into that pavement.
This boy
I still can't believe that I didn't lay mine down when I hit that deer in Virginia, man. That was a
No,
wild
you just
night.
got shitted on.
Yeah, no, dude. So like, long story short, right? I hit a deer with my road glide in Virginia. I was going to meet up with my buddy, who worked at like a local like vape shop slash gas station. Excuse me. And so the road that I was on was 3 lanes, and I was in the rightmost lane. And I saw the deer on the right side of the road, and I was like, if this thing jumps out in front of me, like, what am I gonna do? Because I'm cooked, right? And sure as shit, it went to go like jump out in front of me. And in a split second, this is the best wrinkle brain play that I've ever had in my life. This is the smartest I've ever been. Is in a split second, I was like, if this thing is diving left across the road, I need to yank my bike down to the right as hard as I possibly can, because if this deer hits me, it's going to yank the bike to the left. Well, sure enough, that's exactly what happened. I hit it right in like the back. I call it the back quarter panel, like the hind leg. Well, when I hit it, this motherfucker shit all over the front of the bike, all over me. And I'm on a road glide, but like, and road glides are big and they have a fairing and everything, but I'm 6'5", motherfucker. So I didn't get protected from nothing. So I'm covered in shit, literally. And I pull up to my buddy, and I'm like maybe like 200-300 feet away from him. So he hears me hit it, wham, smoked it, right? And I pull up, and I'm shaking like ass meat on a club on a Friday night, dude. It's horrible. I'm like, I get off the bike. He goes, what the fuck is wrong with you, dude? I go, man, I swear to God on my life. I just hit a deer. He goes, what? And I'm like, yeah, man. And I start telling him what happens. He goes, man, what the fuck? He goes, what? He goes, what's all this over your bike? And we're like, and I didn't realize I'd been shitted on, right? So I'm like, we're looking at the front of the bike, and we're looking at, I'm like, man, there's like splatters all over the front of this thing. And I look down at my clothes, and I'm wearing a sweatshirt. I'm covered in it. And he goes like this. He goes, man, that's shit. And I was like, man, and I was with my ex-wife. I was with my ex-wife at the time, and I got home, and she was like, hey, baby. She goes, whoo. She goes, what the fuck? She goes, man, it smells like shit. And I was like, tell me about it, bro. Tell me about it. I'm covered in it. Absolutely covered. But yeah, that was pretty much like the craziest thing that happened to me. That and like people pulling out in front of me, like in Arizona. Everybody's bombing, doing like 105 miles an hour. And I'm like, But
just freaking the fuck out.
Freaking out, dude. I remember one time I got mad at this guy in Arizona. And this dude cut me off, right? So I'm riding, and I'm scooting. I'm balling through the desert, right? Just just dragging dick, right? Yeah, bro. I got 14-inch apes, so I'm just dragging dick, right? And this dude cut me off in like a white Silverado. And then I like passed him and I turn around like this and I was like, fuck you, bitch. And when I did that, my sunglasses flew off my face. So I was like the sun, like,
who's the tough guy now?
yeah. So it was like instant karma because I was like, fuck you, bitch. And then my sunglasses took off and the sun was going down. And like, if you've ever been in Arizona, man, I don't care what you say, man. That shit out there is bright, son. Bright. Yeah, dude, I turned back around and I'm wearing like 2-day-old contacts. Like I got a hat on backwards that's like I'm flying. So like the hat is like lifting off my head and my sunglasses fly off my face. I'm just like, oh shit. And I'm like riding back to the house. Terrible, dude.
God damn, dude. That's funny, man.
Yeah. Love motorcycles.
Surprisingly, so like in South Carolina, the drivers there, man, especially like in Columbia, fucking horrid, right? And I'm surprised that when I got a bike, and of course, for the most part, I rode with a pack of people, but
yeah,
when I was alone,
a lot safer when there's more people involved.
Yeah, when I was alone though, there was a surprising amount of people who like looked out. You know, there might have been like a couple of people that were just douchebags. Like I seen one homie, he got off the highway to turn onto a main road, and this car, like looking right at him, started getting over into the next lane where he was at. And this dude fucking punched the window, and it was a couple of college age girls or whatever, and he was just like, what the fuck is wrong with you? That's attempted murder.
Dude, it's honestly, bro, like I've been like almost run off the road multiple times, but the most infuriating part for me, honestly, dude, is when people like look you dead in the face and you can see them and they can see you, they acknowledge your presence and then do some goofy shit in front of you, almost kill you, and then go, fuck you. You know what I mean? I'm like, oh, you bitch. If I was in a car with PLPD, man, I would total this motherfucker, you know?
I don't even sometimes it's just motorcycles. I just don't think people pay attention. I mean, I'm in a state essentially.
Hold on, Jake. Something's going on with your network, man. Because
something ain't right, brother.
You over here like people. Hey, sorry, I'm losing you, and they put the crunchy candy wrapper in the phone.
Yeah,
man. I'd love to keep having Jake on, but unfortunately, it looks like he's having some network issues. But no. When we're talking about motorcycles, one of the things that really kind of pisses me off is you're not allowed to like lane split a lot of the time.
It's so dangerous, bro, because people just don't pay attention.
Well,
it's safer for us as a motorcyclist.
So while you're scooting down the road, obviously, like don't lane split, because it's just safer not to. But when you're at like a stoplight.
Oh, like lane filtering?
Yeah, like go through the lane and then get to the front, because you never know when some jackass behind you is just gonna fucking pull up and just wham, slam your shit.
Dude in an F-150 on his phone, texting homegirl bag, wham!
Yeah.
You see it so often, dude. I don't know if you watch like Moto Madness or anything like that on YouTube and stuff. You see it so often. My biggest fear, honestly, dude, I would much rather go head on with a semi with my eyes open than get rear-ended from behind while I'm at a dead stop. I'd much rather go head on with a semi.
Oh yeah,
much rather. Like that's my biggest fear of being on a bike, dude. That's why a lot of the times, like when I pull up behind cars, I leave space, but I like, so say that like this is the car, right? I'll pull up so that I'm kind of like angled, like off to like the side of the car, and I live in my mirrors, dude. Live in them. So like if I feel like somebody ain't stopping, because I don't put my bike in neutral when I pull up to lights. Like I used to do that when I started riding, but people were like, "Hey man, that's kind of dangerous. You shouldn't do that." So I leave it in gear. And I've had a couple moments, like in Arizona, for example, where I thought that somebody wasn't going to stop, and I've just bombed out like in the middle of like the road during a red light. So I'm like, "Fuck that! I'm not going to get rear-ended by some douchebag not paying attention. Like I'm just not going for it." You know?
Yeah,
it's super scary.
Welcome back, Jacob.
All right, no, I think it's enough. I think it sounds better.
No.
It's still doing the thing.
So for me, man, I would pull up to the side of a bumper, like just kind of one of the three different parts of the
Like
lane you
kitty
can
corner.
utilize.
Yeah.
Yeah, and what I would do is I would kind of like halfway go up behind the vehicle in the middle of the lane. Like, so say like there's another car here, I'm like halfway in between both of them, kind of on the edge of the lane, just because it's like, I want to be able to take off if I know somebody ain't gonna stop, and I would live in my mirrors too. But then, it also kind of like some dickheads will try to get as close to that car as they can.
Yeah.
And like kind of, I don't know, man. It's kind of 50-50, I guess I could say, is the best.
It's weird, dude, because like riding motorcycles can be very, very therapeutic, especially to somebody with PTSD. But then it's like it's a 50-50 because on one hand it's very therapeutic. You get pissed off or something, like, I'll just go for a ride. But then like during your ride, you get pissed off because people are doing crazy shit in front of you.
Yeah.
So you go, yeah, man, I'll just go for a ride to clear my head. And then, next thing you know, 15 minutes later, you're down the road going, fuck you, bitch, like screaming at people in the middle of the road,
Well, I think
where before you left that.
Oh yeah, I think it's really kind of hard to determine, that effect, because I mean, yes, very therapeutic and very just, but I also think like in the moment when you're feeling that, like, give yourself a chance to breathe and maybe like, go smoke a cigarette or go, fucking go have a glass of water, breathe, whatever you do to calm down, and then once you're calm, go for that ride. And just, or even schedule it, like call a friend and be like, hey man, I want to go for a ride, like let's go. Like before I left South Carolina, so I got a buddy of mine who's got 4 bikes, and one of them's a Dyna, and he's always been real adamant about like, hey man, if you don't get back on that saddle, you're never gonna.
for sure.
And so after I had my accident, I gave myself a chance to heal up and everything, and then I was always real iffy about riding someone else's bike, just like in case anything happened type shit.
Yeah.
But, he was always very adamant on like, dude, it's your therapy. You're in the Army. I get it. You fucking, I don't want you to freak out or nothing, but this Dyna's got your name on it. Anytime you want to ride it, come for a ride with us. And so we talked about it. I went on a few rides with him. And then the last ride I went on before I left South Carolina was to go to Augusta, Georgia. Mm-hmm. And that shit was very, very nice. Yeah. It was an hour-long ride there, and then we stopped, we ate, and an hour ride back. I think the hardest part about that journey was it was kind of fucking cold at night. It was like 42 degrees, and I'm getting there blasted by the wind, and my hands are numb now, and I'm just like,
Yeah. I've been on a couple of long rides, man. Like the longest ride I've been on was from Arizona to Texas, from Arizona to Fort Hood, man. I think it was like 14 and a half or 16 and a half hours.
Yeah.
And the ride there, so I had to do it in 2 days. Like, I mean, hate if you want, I'm a bitch. I did it in 2 days. The first day wasn't bad. It was just like me and open highway and,
hey man, not bad though.
Yeah, not bad though, bro. Not bad. It was just me and the highway and like the semis at like 2-3 o'clock in the morning. Wasn't bad at all. I mean, I was just kind of bombing through the desert, and like the semis would like honk at me to like let me know that they see me and stuff, and they'd wave to me and stuff. I'd be like, yo, what up? I'd be like, pull the fucking, pull the gabagoo, and they'd honk, and I'd be like, yay, But the second day, man, oh my God, riding through the Texas heat in the middle of the day, my God, man.
Bro, you looked like you had just been railed out by like 6 dudes by the time you showed up to my house.
Dude, dudes, really. I showed up to his house like a couple of days after I got there. I just looked like a bowl of smashed dicks that got pulled out of the microwave in a minute 45. It was terrible.
Yeah.
My hat's all covered.
I remember you showed up at my house at like 3 in the fucking morning, bro.
Yeah, it was the first time we met, and you were like, hey man, how's it going? And I was like, hi. My feet hurt so bad, dude. So bad.
The funniest thing is he came in and we talked for like 5 minutes, and he was like, hey man, you want to see my gun? And I was like, yeah.
Yeah. I allegedly snuck onto Fort Hood with a loaded pistol. Allegedly. But
nah. But anyway, I think we're gonna start wrapping it up here. Joe, thank you so much for having us. Joe, thank you so much for coming on the show and us having you.
Yeah, it not the fucking
I'm mentally challenged,
yeah.
You had touched on like college kids pissing you off and everything. The one thing that I will definitely say for a veteran to not do when they get out is I'm not saying don't go to college.
What you're saying, don't go to college?
No, I take it. If you take a full course load, aim for like 3 of those to be online, because coming out of military culture and then trying to force yourself to reassimilate with society and being surrounded by a bunch of mouth breathing, window licking like children is. I wouldn't suggest it. It was probably one of the most enraging experiences of my life.
That's funny because I'm about to go down to San Antonio and go and start applying for the community college we got by my dad's house.
At least half of your classes do online. I'm telling you, when you get stuck in a room with like 80 of these kids, it's Jesus. It makes you question decisions.
So bad.
Obviously.
Well,
poor kid, he's got eyes going in 2 directions. He's like, "Hi, I'm so and so," and I'm just like,
great.
Yeah, no, I can only imagine. Well, hey Joe, thanks again. I really appreciate you coming onto the show and telling your story. And with that said, we are going to wrap up. I know Nick just put out the Tills4Thrills, the Tills4Thrills podcast at gmail.com. So any questions, comments, concerns, you want to hit on another topic, you have any suggestions for us, you can go ahead and email us there. You can also find us on Rumble at Krypton Kill, Facebook, the Tills4Thrills podcast, Instagram, Twitch, X, where we're on every social media, every major social media platform anyway. I know that we are still trying to figure out what's going on for the next episode, but if you guys are in a spot of trouble, you can always call the Veterans Crisis Line, dial 988, and then just press 1. With that said, Nick, do you have anything to add in closing?
Yeah, actually, like we said, Joe, greatly appreciate you coming on and sharing your experiences and your thoughts. Hopefully at some point in the future, we'd like to be able to have you on as a guest, for a different time. Like Julian had said, guys, go on ahead, like and share this stuff to your friends. Go on and push it out, man. If you feel that there's somebody that needs to hear what we got to say, push it out. It's too easy. Other than that, we love you guys. Hope you guys are having a good day. Hopefully the car is doing all right. Hopefully you don't need brakes because that shit's expensive. Hopefully you don't need your toilet fixed like I need mine fixed, and you don't have to go chase it, all the time because it keeps running. Anything other than that, I guess we'll just see you in the next episode.
Bye-bye.